Tēnā koutou katoa. E mihi ana kia ahumairangi, kia tangi te kio, ki te whanganui atara. Tānei whakapiripiri e tū nei. E nā tangata whenua o te rohi, e nā mema o te whare paramata, ki ora. Nōku te honorei, ki te whakarewa e te tāhua mō te tau nei, rārau mai. As I said in Te Reo Māori, it is an honour to announce this year's budget. The budget delivers on key commitments. For the first time in 14 years, hard-working New Zealanders will get to keep more of their own money through our government's tax relief. We are shifting resources out of the back office of government and into the front line. We are investing in healthcare, in schools and police. We are putting New Zealanders' money where it can make the biggest difference. And what's more, our commitments are delivered within an operating allowance that is the lowest in real terms since Stephen Joyce's budget in 2017. In other words, this is a fiscally responsible budget, the most fiscally responsible in 7 years. Mr. Speaker, on Budget Day, it's easy to get caught up in the analysis, the commentary, and the voices in the lobby. Actually, that is not what the budget is about. This budget is for everyday people getting on with their lives. The mums and dads rushing the kids to daycare or kohanga, working hard, waiting in traffic and watching the petrol light flash again. This budget is for the people whose doors I knocked on in the election campaign, who said $20 a week would be the difference between staying on top of the bills and being in overdraft. It's for the man who told me he picked up a second job driving an Uber to pay the rent. And it's for every New Zealander from every walk of life who gives their best and wants a fair deal in return. This is a budget for the squeezed middle of New Zealand, the shift workers, the people working 2 jobs, the families making sacrifices for their kids. Parliament's focus today and every day should be the results we deliver for people like them. Because the right measure of success is whether government is making a positive difference to the lives of New Zealanders and their families, not how many times it claims to care, and not how much money it spends. Mr. Speaker, the creation and passage of a budget each year is at the heart of stable government, and this budget is a team effort. In particular, I want to acknowledge and thank the Associate Ministers of Finance, David Seymour, Shane Jones, and Chris Bishop, who were heavily involved in putting this budget together. It has benefited considerably from their ideas, advice and input. The other budget minister in this process was the Prime Minister, and I am grateful for his leadership, support and wise counsel as always. Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge how challenging economic conditions are for many Kiwis right now. New Zealand is experiencing a very difficult downturn. It suffered an acute cost of living crisis in 2022 and 2023. The Reserve Bank responded by raising interest rates. The official cash rate went from 0.25% to 5.5% and has remained there for a year. That hurts. I get regular updates from the Treasury about the state of the economy. And what is apparent now, compared to 6 months ago, is that the current downturn started earlier, has been deeper, and is expected to last for longer than previously thought. In this environment, I feel for families and businesses across the country who are doing it tough. And what I can say to them is that better times lie ahead. The economy is robust and it will recover. Forecasts in the budget update indicate that current weakness in the economy will reduce inflation pressures and lead to a gradual easing of interest rates. The Treasury expects the unemployment rate to peak at the end of 2024 and start of 2025 before beginning to fall. And as interest rates ease, economic growth is forecast to pick up over the second half of this year and to continue into 2025. The government's job is to help that recovery, not hinder it. And in recent years, big government spending has fuelled inflation. It has also caused a significant deterioration in New Zealand's fiscal position. The Obergall operating balance, the difference between government revenue and spending before gains and losses, has been in deficit since 2019-2020. And for the most part, this is a result of continued spending increases. Some of these increases were temporary in response to COVID-19, for example, but others were not. And after stripping out large one-off expenses and adjusting for the economic cycle, the Treasury estimates a structural operating deficit of around 1.5% of GDP this financial year. Structural deficit is a technical term. To put it less formally, New Zealand has been borrowing to pay for the groceries. And this borrowing has contributed to rapidly rising debt. In 2017-18, net core Crown debt was under 20% of GDP. It is now over 43% of GDP. And the solution is clear. Revenue and expenses must be brought back into balance. Debt must come down. This task is challenging. It has become even more challenging as the economic forecasts have deteriorated. Compared to the half-year update, the budget update expects core Crown tax revenue to be lower by around $18.5 billion across the forecast period as a result of lower GDP and lower business income tax. That is a significant revenue downgrade, leading to a lower operating balance and higher debt. To bring revenue and expenses back into balance, the government has a choice. It can manage its spending or it can raise additional revenue. Given that choice, this government's focus is squarely on managing spending. And the key top-down tool for this is operating allowances. That is the amount set aside for discretionary new spending in each budget. We are setting tight but realistic operating allowances in this budget and in future budgets. And we intend to stick to them. And I said in the budget policy statement that the final operating allowance for budget 2024 would be less than $3.5 billion, which was the allowance set by the previous government. The final allowance in this year's budget is in fact $3.2 billion. This is the lowest allowance in nominal terms since budget 2018 and the lowest in real terms, that is adjusting for inflation, since budget 2017. Operating allowances for budgets 2025 to 2027 will be even lower, at $2.4 billion per budget. These are considerably lower than the allowances presented in the half-year update, which was set by the previous government, and they are lower than those set out in National's fiscal plan. By comparison, the final operating allowances for the last two Labour budgets were $5.9 billion in 2022 and $4.8 billion in 2023.
And that was Nicola Willis. live presenting her first ever budget in Parliament there, where she, of course, had to use the phrase, "This is for the squeeze middle, this is for them," and talking about how it's a very challenging, difficult downturn, and it's going to be a deeper and longer challenge for them. So we're just going to have a quick look at a couple of the key takeaways at a glance, as we call it, for the budget at the moment. And if we have a look at this, so you can see new tax thresholds, but from July 31st, I believe that's pushing that out just slightly. Was going to be July 1st, July 31st instead. In terms of health spending over 4 years, $8.15 billion. Education over 4 years, $2.9 billion. $2.9 billion also for law and order over the next 4 years. And there it is, the $1.2 billion for the new Regional Infrastructure Fund. I'm guessing that's the New Zealand First Provincial Growth Fund 2.0 or Provincial Growth Fund Light.